Well, thank you very much. Tomorrow is a very big day because tomorrow will represent 50 years from the time we planted a beautiful American flag on the moon. And that was an achievement, possibly considered one of the great achievements ever. And we're going a lot further now. We're going to the moon, but we're then going to Mars. And I think very importantly, and all of you folks know that from a standpoint of defense, so important. We're going to be doing the Space Force. I assume you guys are all in favor of the Space Force, right? I'd be very surprised if you weren't, but that's where it's at. We're going to be doing the Space Force. We're very close to getting that completed and operating, and it's going to be very exciting. So a lot of things are happening.
Werner von Braun, born Silesia 1912, nationality American. Boss of a group of former German rocket scientists, today understandably jubilant.
The greatest day in our life, I think, that a lot of my colleagues are close to retirement or been retired already, will see this as a fulfillment in their life, in their professional life.
Well, a long dream has come true on this day, and I think everybody who has been somehow involved in this project will be extremely happy.
Huntsville, Alabama is the heart of the American rocket industry, and it wears its heart on its sleeve. Of the group of 120 rocket scientists and engineers that von Braun brought with him in 1945, more than half are still here. They've become the folk who live on the hill, in a part of town known sometimes locally as Huntsville.
I think it's probably basically a romantic drive that motivated me. But with romanticism alone, you don't build these things. They're pretty demanding with respect to perfection. They're pretty unforgiving too. There's no such thing as a 99.9% success. That 0.1% can still lead to a complete failure.
Was there ever a moment when you thought that you wouldn't reach the moon?
Well, let's put it this way. When I was 17 and started all this, the moon looked a lot closer to me than it did for a long, long time in between. But today it looks again very close. But in the meantime, of course, we've learned a few things. Among others, I've learned, for example, what $1 billion is, something I had no conception for in the early days. You mean mankind will survive? Oh no, I think mankind's a pretty sturdy breed. I think I'm very optimistic that man will stay on top of things in spite of the problems that engineers, among other people, create.
You don't think that we're going to have to escape to Mars one day?
No, I'd rather look at it the other way. I think somehow space flight for the first time gives mankind a chance to become immortal. In other words, once this Earth will no longer be able to support life, we can immigrate and go to other places that are better suited for the support of life.
So this past weekend, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of man setting foot on the moon, as I'm sure almost every one of you knows. And I was watching a lot of the NASA celebration propaganda that was going on for several days, and it was kind of a nationwide event with different exhibits and things going on at air and space museums and everything like that. Then the centerpiece, of course, was this Go for the Moon presentation in DC, which they played several times a night, 2 nights in a row. It's like this 25-minute production, which I've kind of been dumbstruck ever since I watched it the other day. just absorbing the bizarre and yet, like, in your face exclamation point to so many things that just watching this, it's like I just kept watching it, like going, okay, this really is real. This, I mean, my goodness, this is an occult ritual embodying the original occult ritual from 50 years ago, and then like condensing that whole era into this 25-minute spectacle, which is like this roller coaster ride of, emotionalism and sound clips and sound bites and images, and you just, like, everything you're looking at is occult symbolism, is archetypal conditioning, and, it's mind-blowing. You're watching this this presentation where there's the screens on the sides showing, like, just tons of clips of the astronauts and everything, but in the center is the Saturn rocket projected onto the Washington Monument, this giant obelisk. I mean, it so embodies exactly everything you see Kubrick really showing in 2001: A Space Odyssey with the obelisk. What all of this represents. This whole picture of, it's all about transcendence. Transcendence through technology. Right? That's the message. And you watch something like this and you're like, how do people still try and deny that science is a religion? I mean, it is so in your face. At the end of it, so they do the whole history of, building up to the launch, and there's like this countdown clock, and it's the stages of the rocket. I mean, the whole thing is symbolism, is esoteric symbolism. Everything about Apollo, every photo you've ever seen, is a type of programming, is a type of initiation. That's what the whole thing is. This whole event in 1969. Like, and people always ask, like, well, why would they do this? Why would they go to all this trouble to fake something like this? And it's like, they're telling you now all the time, or we're telling ourselves. It was about this change in consciousness of all of humanity. And that's what they always talk about, even though, it was this one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. It was this united, or one human race accomplishing something, even though the entire build-up to it was predicated on beating Russia to the moon. And yet they get on the moon, and nobody's talking about, well, good thing we stepped on the moon first and beat the Russians, because that was what this was all about. No, it was this victorious achievement. It's this pinnacle achievement. That's what going to the moon, go for the moon, reach for the moon. So at the end of this 25-minute production, of course, it transitions into, we're going back to the moon, because that's what they've been talking about all weekend, and Trump, and, Space Force, and now, there's going to be plenty of links below, but Trump talking about, like having this fake conversation, like he's asking, so how are we going to do that? Well, is that a good idea? Anyways, Space Force. But yes, going back to the moon, creating this Artemis program, where first we're going to go have a moon base, or have like a smaller space station that orbits the moon, and from there we'll use that as our launching pad, for Orion and stuff, or manned space flight to Mars, and they're talking about 2024, and it's nuts. The whole thing is nuts. So at the end of this Go for the Moon presentation on the Washington Monument, on the monolith, the narrator lady comes on and she says, "The United States is working to send humans back to the moon. The Artemis missions will carry the fire of Apollo under the same banner of freedom and peace. The spirit of Apollo is a world in which the sky is no longer the limit, and the moon is just the beginning." What do you even need to say? You either understand what is happening, what this is all about, or you just will not see it, because it's revealed itself on so many levels. This whole message of the apotheosis of man, everything we've been talking about with space travel, connecting back to cosmism and mysticism And the Gnostic dream of transcending the physical limitations and using knowledge to unlock the secrets of the universe, to build the technology, to do whatever we need to do, to cure disease, to enhance ourselves, and eventually become immortal. And Wernher von Braun, like in the days before Apollo, people debate whether he had his deathbed confession and all that and his tombstone, and who knows, but July 1969, so he'd been working for NASA for like 20 years at that point, still talking about man becoming immortal. That's the whole point of the whole idea of spaceflight. Man eventually becoming immortal and going to other planets. This is what cosmism was talking about before they even, quote-unquote, discovered the rocket equations, which was discovered by a Russian occultist, supposedly. Wernher von Braun, who was like the head of NASA for how long? All these Nazis. But it's not the fact that they were Nazis, quote unquote, that's significant. It's the fact that they all, as you hear von Braun, it's like, okay, the politics and the war and all that, whatever, I've changed my mind, but the underlying dream of spaceflight, which represents the idea of man transcending the physical limitations, the earthly binds. The sky is no longer the limit. Oh my gosh, all this language is completely spiritual language. This is a religion. It's like watching a Greek mythological play. That's exactly what it is, this archetypal bonanza for your senses. They're employing nostalgia, and they're employing, intense music and all these sound clips that you've heard, and compiling them all into this enrapturing, emotional, ecstatic experience. This is an initiation, or a reinitiate. It's like appealing to the people who lived it, who were there and watched it on TV, who saw it, quote unquote, and appealing to all the same television screen transmitted, iconic images. The footprint on the moon, the rocket going up, the photos of the Earth over the moonrise. These are all crazy programming, and you're seeing it all being cashed in on again, but then being used to then transition to the next generation. So now we're going to this new phase, but it's back to the moon and Mars. So if you even think about that from like a Luciferian transcendental symbolism and significance, that's what all of this is. That's the point of the play. To initiate the viewer, to induct the participant, to impart beliefs and values and perceptions of themselves and the world that they live in, the questions about where we came from and where we're going and how did we get here and what does it all mean. Every question of religion is addressed in all this. Origins and destiny. The ascending rocket, that symbolizes their perception of human destiny, transcending by our own means, by the work of our own hands, and the towers that we build, and the rockets that we build. They symbolize the same thing. That's why it's like so insanely amazing to me that it's like they did this, they put those together. Oh well, it's just because of the shape's convenient, I guess. I just coincidentally, that's what just blows my mind. What is it about the tower as a symbol, whether it's like a building or tower that, lifts off? And my gosh, sometimes I watch, especially the space shuttle footage, and I think it's like watching a big balloon. It like shifts to the side when it takes off and stuff. I don't know. All I know is they're not going into space and they're not walking on the surface of the moon. So, yeah, I really don't think anybody's in those things. But who knows? I just sit here staring at this imagery and shaking my head. It's unreal. It's unreal. The monolith, the obelisk, is the screen. Do you know how occult this is? Do you, this is what's crazy, right? Because sometimes people get frustrated or they push back against the idea of how much showing so much occult symbolism, right? Like in a video, and sometimes I wrestle with that, like where's the line or whatever, and you don't want to be confusing about it or whatever, but it's like, okay, just here's 25 minutes of nonstop, like everything you're saying is occult symbolism, and yet, like, how many people grasp that's what's going on? And there's no visceral reaction to it. It's all these emotional reactions and patriotic reactions and nostalgia of the 60s and the summer of 69. I mean, there's so much that has been built into all of this stuff that is now not just, it's American, but it's also the whole world. The whole world is getting to celebrate this event through the conduit of the United States space program, and now it's all just one, worldwide space program. It was all predicated on war, the Cold War, and yet it's been amazingly cooperative, not to mention the Antarctic Treaty during the whole thing, and CERN, and CERN was created the same year as NASA, by the way, as an organization. But I mean, yeah, the moon. I mean, when I look at moon, just craters, like gray craters, and any shot of the moon to me is like, that's not real. But it's depicting an idea. It's depicting a whole scientific worldview by believing in craters on the moon and footprints on the moon. It's like materialism in an image. It's evolutionism in an image. And it symbolizes man stepping out. Giant leap for mankind. We did it. We proved. It's like the whole point of the moon is like we tasted it. We left our footprints there, and they're debating like what happens when we go back to the moon, because nobody really owns the Tranquility Base. It's like supposedly the moon is all open to everyone. So theoretically, rovers or the Chinese could go like destroy Neil Armstrong's footprints and this piece of history. So they're like actually I've read articles about political debates about that, and it's like those footprints, who knows how long they actually remained in place in this on a soundstage. Did they take a cast of it maybe so they could try and reproduce it later? I don't know. If you're gonna how are they that there's a twisted part of me that's like can't wait to see what they're gonna do, but then I also think about like with everything that's going on now. So 2024, 5 years from now, the other day a friend of mine said the only way they're going to be able to try and do it again is under the banner of a completely different internet. And that's probably completely true. Sadly. Because in the fact that, this is all, I'm watching this insane distillation of so much stuff, so much deception. Like Mystery Babylon, ancient and modern, just pretty much exorcist vomiting in your face. Yeah, and all this is happening just a few years after, a bunch of us crazy folks started even questioning whether space was real. And what are we really living in? How big do the lies go? This great deception. And why? And it's like, here we are. This is to me, this is like aliens on the White House lawn, almost. I mean, it might as well be. Because we know what the aliens, quote unquote, really are anyways, and it's like, yeah. And there's so much, like, buzz going on about that, of course, with UFOs and everything like that. I mean, it's not going away, right? There's so much talk. Storming Area 51, and, where did that even idea come from? Why did it get hyped in the media? It's so bizarre. Tom DeLonge is still talking about disclosure and all sorts of stuff. Man could be immortal. It's what the Masons believe. It's what the Masons believe. It's what the Kabbalists believe. It's what the Theosophists believe. It's what the New Age believes. It's what Mystery Babylon believes. It's the lie of Genesis 3. You'll be like God. We're our own God. It's man trying to be his own measure of all things. That's what science is, and Gnosticism is. And Christians who try and merge all this stuff with God's revelation, Like all this knowledge that we supposedly have about his creation came through this, all this crap. And yeah, this is my favorite shot here of like the capsule falling, like a star falling from heaven. I mean, are you joking me? Anyways, yeah, I'm sure there's so many aspects of this that people could point out that I'm not even touching upon because there's just so much in here. So just hearing them talk about Mars and, oh yeah, the moon is full of frozen water now, by the way. Didn't you all know? Chock full. Scores of water all over the moon, and it's a resource that we can use, when we have our moon base, and they can turn it into drinking water, and fuel, rocket fuel, and oxygen. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be like Biodome on the moon. And, then we're going to watch human beings go to Mars, where it's, we're going to make footprints in the orange sand. And then all of us are going to have to be looking at that crap for however many years until the Lord returns, or we pass on. I mean, like, that's coming, right? The orange footprint, the Mars footprint, and it's going to be like, give me, like, really? Well, do we get a yellow Venus footprint? And what about Saturn and Jupiter? Those will be hard because they're made out of gas. Oh, but they have moons that you can land on. Well, we're going to send submarines. Oh, do you guys even read the shit that they put out, like, on a daily basis? Excuse my language. Science fiction that's being written by like a million different little sources, but it's all one narrative. Well, little sources that are all pulling from one central source. It's all Antichrist. I mean, I know that sounds like crazy apocalyptic Christian rhetoric to so many people, but again, I'm watching this space-themed cult ritual on the obelisk in Washington, D.C. right now, so really don't care if you think that I'm being overdramatic or that it's just fear porn, because it's not fear porn. I'm talking about the Antichrist. That's what people don't get. Because they've, how much of that is because that's been part of the conditioning too. Like, you're just waiting for God to save you. We got to save ourselves. It's like, oh, that message is familiar. Oh yeah, that's the same message that's on the big obelisk right now. It's not really that original. It's not really contrary to the mainstream message at all, is it? We've got to save ourselves. We got to have the technology that they have. We got to have the secret occulted knowledge that they have. That's what's wrong. We're not the one in the rocket. I mean, the whole thing. That stupid Google commercial. I want to be an astronaut. Little kids running around in NASA. I mean, that's a whole... It's like, dude, that's... Oh my gosh. Cosmism for children. So what does that mean? It's like theosophy for children. Superheroes. I mean, everything. NASA. Star Wars. It's all the same freaking thing. It's just ridiculous how permeating all levels of society and entertainment and academia and you name it. It's like the same thing everywhere. So yeah, the space thing is just one thing that everyone comes together on. The whole world came together, even though we were in the middle of the Vietnam War. Apollo. The Artemis missions will carry the fire of Apollo. The fire of Apollo. This is not quote-unquote scientific language, guys. The fire of Apollo. Under the same banner of freedom and peace. So Apollo was about freedom and peace because we had to beat Russia to the moon, because if we didn't, they were going to set up a moon base and be able to blow us up with nukes from the moon, right? And now here again, so on the one hand we're saying the Artemis missions are under the same banner of freedom and peace. Well, Trump's talking about Space Force and defense. So we're going, is it freedom and peace or is it national defense? It's like, oh no, it's both. It's both, don't you understand? Right. And you want to talk about like dialectics, like up the wazoo. The spirit of Apollo is a world in which the sky is no longer the limit. And the moon is just the beginning. It's a world in which the sky is no longer the limit. I mean, I love it. I just had to rant about this because I don't know what else to do. It's like, it is what it is. It's kind of blowing my mind, and at the same time, it's not even shocking at all, you know? It's weird. It's the weirdest part is just like how obvious it is now. Like how transparent it seems like it should be. To anyone who, like, A, believes the Bible, or B, has looked into all these conspiracies, like, at all, or for any decent amount of time, to where you've gotten past just the basic stuff, and you see what's behind everything. And then, you go down all these rabbit holes trying to understand the occult stuff, but it's like, they still don't want to listen to what the Bible has to say about all of that, because it makes everything so clear in a lot of ways. So simple. Everything is, like, quite simple. They have their own gospel. This is the Mystery Babylon gospel. Just like this and this and this and this. And we see it everywhere. And they're all coming together just like the Bible said they would. This beast system, it's about a religion. It's not about all the fear and doom and gloom of financial this. And the crazy thing about it is that it's a religion that is also a government, that is also technology, that is also everything. It's a technocracy. It's a satanic antichrist kingdom because it's anti the real God and anti the real gospel. But there is a seemingly compelling and beautiful gospel that they're offering instead, that Satan's offering instead. You will be like God. You are like God. Look, we just proved it. I mean, we put people on the moon in a tin can, so we're amazing. But I mean, that's the thing. As ridiculous as it sounds, that people would fake a moon landing in order to convince themselves that they can do something that we can't do, to convince everyone else. That's what Satan's doing. The analogy is, like, could not be more perfect. It's all the same lie, it's just with bigger props, better special effects, more passionate music, and combination of historical images and icons and programming and associations and archetypes, emotional cues, childhood connections, years invested in higher education, years of watching programs on television and documentaries and propaganda, and the ISS, supposedly spinning around the globe day and night, day and night. Yep, we're in space. Yep, we're in space. It's still in space. That's their whole, look, we're floating, we're still in space. Look, we're doing science, we're playing with bubbles, we're in space. Yep, we really did. We got the live cam, so shut up. Oh, yep, now we gotta go back to the moon and to Mars, because why? Oh, right, because there's no reason to do that unless you believe in Star Trek fantasy. Like, you don't just go to Mars just to go walk around on an oven planet and put your footprint in the sand. You do that because, like von Braun said in '69, you think it's the key, it's like the path to immortality. We're going to planet hop our way through the solar system until we can transcend space and time. And again, that sounds really familiar. It's really familiar. Alright guys, that's what I got. Have a good one.
Brothers, we do not want you to be ignorant about those who fall asleep, or to grieve like the rest of men who have no hope. We believe that Jesus died and rose again, and so we believe that God will bring with Jesus those who have fallen asleep in Him. According to the Lord's own word, we tell you that we who are still alive, who are left till the coming of the Lord, will certainly not precede those who have fallen asleep. For the Lord Himself will come down from heaven with a loud command, with the voice of the archangel, and with a trumpet call of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. After that, we who are still alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so we will be with the Lord forever. Therefore encourage each other with these words. Now, brothers, about times and dates we do not need to write to you, for you know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. While people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly, as labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. But you, brothers, are not in darkness, so that this day should surprise you like a thief. You are all sons of the light and sons of the day. We do not belong to the night or to the darkness. So then, let us not be like others who are asleep, but let us be alert and self-controlled. For those who sleep, sleep at night, and those who get drunk at night. But since we belong to the day, let us be self-controlled, putting on faith and love as a breastplate, and the hope of salvation as a helmet. For God did not appoint us to suffer wrath, but to receive salvation through our Lord Jesus Christ. He died for us so that whether we are awake or asleep, we may live together with Him. Therefore encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing. Now we ask you, brothers, to respect those who work hard among you, who are over you in the Lord, and who admonish you. Hold them in the highest regard in love because of their work. Live in peace with each other. And we urge you, brothers, warn those who are idle, encourage the timid, help the weak, be patient with everyone. Make sure that nobody pays back wrong for wrong, but always try to be kind to each other and to everyone else. Be joyful always. Pray continually. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Do not put out the Spirit's fire. Do not treat prophecies with contempt. Test everything. Hold on to the good. Avoid every kind of evil. May God Himself, the God of peace, sanctify you through and through. May your whole spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. The one who called you is faithful, and He will do it. Brothers, pray for us. Greet all the brothers with a holy kiss. I charge you before the Lord to have this letter read to all the brothers. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you.